What if I told you there's a country that isn't just, well, a country, but is history itself? It sounds like a pretty bold claim, right? But one source makes exactly that argument, about Ethiopia. So in this explainer, we're going to dig in and see what's behind that powerful idea.
So here's the statement from our source, plain and simple. Ethiopia is not just a country, it is history. And, that's not just some pretty poetic line, it's a real argument. It's saying that this nation's story is literally woven into the fabric of all of our history. But okay, a claim that big, you got to back it up with some proof, right?
And that leads us to the big question, doesn't it? Why? What exactly is it about Ethiopia that could possibly support a claim like that? Well, let's start digging into the evidence from our source. And to do that, we have to go back, way back, to the very beginning of the human story.
Right. So our journey to answer that why doesn't just start a few centuries ago. Nope. We're going to the very dawn of humanity itself.
Okay, so this is really the first big piece of the puzzle. Ethiopia is wildly believed to be the place where humankind took its very first steps. You've probably heard of the famous fossil Lucy, right? Well, discoveries like that have put the origins of our most ancient ancestors right here. And that's the key takeaway. Ethiopia's story isn't just its story. In a very real way, it's the beginning of everyone's story. The whole human timeline starts right here. All right, so moving on from the ancient past. What's so fascinating about this next point is that Ethiopia's uniqueness isn't just history, it's happening right now, in the very rhythm of everyday life, right down to how people measure time itself. Seriously, the country literally operates on its own schedule.
So get this, while most of the world uses the Gregorian calendar, the one on your phone, Ethiopia has its own ancient calendar. It actually has 13 months, and it's roughly 7 to 8 years behind the global standard. Just let that sink in for a second. An entire nation marching to the beat of its own historical drum, completely independent of how the rest of us mark the years.
And it's not just the calendar. The clock is different too. The day is often counted in 2 12-hour cycles that start at sunrise, not at midnight. So what you and I would call 7 a.m. in traditional Ethiopian time is actually 1 o'clock in the morning. It's a totally different way of looking at the day, and it just doubles down on this idea of a country on its own unique historical and cultural path.
Okay, let's shift gears from something as abstract as time to something you might literally be holding in your hand right now. We're talking about a daily ritual for billions of people that all started with a single plant in the highlands of Ethiopia.
Yep, we're talking about coffee. The source makes a great point here. The entire global coffee culture, everything from an Italian espresso to your favorite latte, it all traces back to one single place, the Kaffa region in Ethiopia. That's where the plant came from, and legend says that's where a goat herder first noticed its energetic effects. From this one spot, it spread across the globe. It's literally a gift to the world, one that fuels our mornings and, yeah, a huge part of the global economy. All right, now we're going to turn to a moment that is just profoundly important in history. A moment when Ethiopia's story became a symbol of hope, not just for itself, but for an entire continent that was struggling against colonial expansion. And this quote from the source really nails it. Think about the late 19th century, the so-called scramble for Africa, when European powers were carving up the continent. In the middle of all that, Ethiopia did something that was basically unheard of. At the Battle of Ottawa in 1896, they defeated a major European colonial army from Italy. And this wasn't just about protecting their own borders. As our source puts it, they protected Africa's honor. I mean, the impact of that one victory, it was absolutely monumental. First, it kept Ethiopia independent when almost the entire rest of the continent was being colonized. And because of that, it meant this unique history we've been talking about, the calendar, the way of telling time, the ancient culture, all of it was allowed to survive and continue. And beyond that, it became this incredible symbol of resistance and freedom for people all across Africa and the world. So let's pull all these different threads together, shall we? We've talked about the very beginning of humanity, the unique way time is kept today, a gift that changed the world, and a victory that defined a continent. We're coming full circle now. When you really lay it all out, the argument from our source starts to look incredibly strong. You have the cradle of all humanity. You have a nation that literally runs on its own time. You have the origin of coffee, one of the most popular drinks on earth. And you have a defender that protected its own freedom and inspired a continent. Any one of those things is pretty significant, but put them all together, that builds a really compelling case. So now, let's look at that original statement one more time. Ethiopia is not just a country, it is history. See how it lands differently now? It's not just a nice phrase anymore. It feels like the conclusion to a powerful argument.
It positions Ethiopia not as just another country with a history, but as this unique, active force within the grand story of the entire world.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If the story of just one nation can be so deeply connected to the history of every single one of us, it just makes you wonder, right? What other essential stories are out there, shaping our world in ways we haven't even begun to understand yet?